Okay, we're good. My name is Ron Tyran, and this is Tori Mackey.
Okay.
We're both from the Chatham County Sheriff's Department, and we've been asked by the city of Port Wentworth to come in and, I guess, assist or take over the investigation, specifically the investigation of the photograph of Miss Johnson, Debbie Johnson.
Yes, sir.
Okay, are you familiar with the photograph?
I have not seen it, no, sir.
Okay, but you
I've
know
heard about it.
What have you heard?
That one was taken. I mean, it's in the paper, an upskirt or whatever.
Okay.
And I don't know that I'm allowed to discuss what was discussed in executive session or not, so.
I don't think we're going to ask that.
Okay. Well, other than that
yeah.
discussion in paper, that's what I know about it.
Yeah. So, you know, it's a very unflattering photograph.
Yes, from what I understand.
Yeah. I don't believe any man or woman would want a photograph that was released. I don't think they'd want that.
I agree.
We've spoken with Ms. Johnson, and straight to the chase, bottom line here is she wants to know who took that photograph. And so I'm going to ask you the question basically in two ways. It's the same question, but do you factually know who took that photograph?
No, sir.
Okay. Do you have a gut feeling of who took that photograph?
No, sir.
All right. The photograph was, we believe, to have been taken around May 2015. It was during an executive session. And the reason why we believe that to be true is because Fred Williams had taken a video of a council meeting on that day, and it shows Miss Johnson wearing the identical dress and identical hairstyle. And in the council meeting, it's moved to go into an executive session. And then the photograph is Miss Johnson sitting at one of these tables. Tables appear to be in a classroom position. And she's just sitting in a naturally relaxed position. And the individual that took the photograph done so from a vantage point that was in front of her to the left. And it appears to be that they held the camera or their phone, whatever it was, up underneath the table that they were sitting behind them so that they could capture this photograph. It's not a photograph of, if you think of upskirting, going up underneath the skirt when the woman's standing upright. Miss Johnson was just seated in a relaxed position. And unfortunately, the individual that took the photograph, instead of being the more mature person and bringing it to her attention, Miss Johnson, in private, you know, you may want to reposition yourself. The person took the photograph, and here we are today. And we're trying to figure out who took the photograph. Now, would you have, since you can't say what was in the, you would have been there in May in the executive session?
Have y'all seen the photograph?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Well, I don't know if I could say or not. But Ms. Johnson made a statement in that executive session about the photograph.
Well, no. We're not talking about.
No, I'm going to tell you what she said. That
she couldn't have possibly said anything about the photograph in that executive session.
No. I'm talking about the one we had where this all was brought up. That stated my position in the room. She mentioned that I was in the room. And that I was behind her. So I guess I was there.
Okay. Well, do you have any specific recall of that particular executive session back in May?
No. I mean, we had a council meeting that day, and for the past probably year, every council meeting we've had an executive session. So it's more than likely that we did have an executive session.
But you have no specific recall?
No.
That's fine. We wouldn't expect you to.
When you have your executive sessions, do they pair up council members? Those that are generally voting with each other, do they pair up? Do they generally pair up?
No. And it, too, it depends on how the room's set up. As you can see, today it's set up like this. Sometimes it's set up differently. It just depends on what kind of trainings we've had. So we could come in here and the tables be set any kind of way.
No pattern. Nobody
No.
has a seat that they prefer. Miss Powers never sits next to or always sits next to Miss Johnson. Nothing like that. Nothing that.
Not that I've recognized. I mean,
Okay.
that's not something I would store away in my memory anyway.
Yeah. Mr. Claxton seems to believe that this council now is, and he believes that there's two groups. And that might be my word, groups, but he believes that Ms. Johnson, Mr. Barbie, and Mr. Fox are pretty much teamed up on one side. Would you agree that's a fair statement?
I really don't want to talk about the politics of it. I mean,
But-
unless I just have to, because, I mean, they're my bosses, and I don't want to. What appears to me might not be what's true.
Okay, well, I don't think we're asking you to sling dirt, okay? I think what we're just trying to establish, and the reason why I asked the question is because if it is true that we have Johnson, Barbie on Fox on one side, the chances of Barbie or Fox taking that picture and using it against Miss Johnson is highly unlikely. And then if we have that it's true that Heron, Powers, and Bowers are on the other side, it would be more likely that we might want to spend a little bit more time on those. So that's the reason for the question. We're just trying to figure out where friends and enemies are. And that's all. And it's just based on your personal observation. So do you think Johnson, Barbie, and Fox are a team? Do you think that?
I don't know that they're a team, but I do know that they've had functions together, say community events together.
And you wouldn't have that with your enemy, somebody you didn't like.
I wouldn't think so, but
I wouldn't think so.
unless you're, coming together for the good of the community, they might would put aside differences to.
Yeah, you would think so. But now we got to throw a little curveball in here, because back on the date that this photograph was taken, you've got two members of council that are no longer seated, and that's Stanhope and Holbrook. You remember those two individuals?
Of course.
Okay. Well, let's talk about Mr. Stanhope for a second. Which category, which group, which team do you think he'd fall under? Do you think he was Team Johnson or Team Heron?
I don't know.
Or you think he was independent?
I don't know. I don't know. I really don't get into all of that.
Okay. What about Holbrook? Team Johnson or Team Heron?
That one would be even harder because at one time, Councilman Johnson and Holbrook were friends, and then something happened and they weren't. So I couldn't give you a timeline of when that happened. I just know that there was a split somehow, some sort.
Do you recall during the Ice Bucket Challenge when Mr. Stanhope participated in one and posted it up on YouTube or Facebook? What sticks out in your memory about that?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, everybody was doing it. What made Mr. Stanhope special? Why was that a point of interest in this council or with this council?
Well, in a council meeting, it was brought up that it shouldn't have been done.
To raise money for a good cause? That was what was mentioned? Or was it mentioned that he did it in bras and a woman's outfit?
I don't know that it was a bra, but
That's
it was
how-
women's clothing, I believe.
Yeah. At one point, it was told us that Miss Johnson led a campaign to try to get Mr. Stanhope taken off of the council because of his actions. Do you remember that?
Well, I don't know that Miss Johnson led it because she was not the only one vocal about it that night. I don't know who led it, but she was not the only one vocal about it that night.
Yeah. And they were vocal about the fact that he was out there trying to raise money for a good cause?
Well, the manner in which he did it.
The manner in which he did it, yeah. Which makes more sense. Because I don't think anybody's going to complain about doing something for a good cause.
So did they think, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So did they think his actions demeaned the city, or what, did they think that it was personal demeaning, or?
I mean, I don't know what they meant what I heard them say from their comments was that as a council member, he should not have dressed in the way he had and being a representative of this city. That's what I heard from the comments, or what I interpreted from what was said.
Yeah.
Was it a unanimous decision virtually, or was it a sort of a singular group decision?
What's that?
In other words, divided up into three parts. Was it all of the council said, well, you know, this is not good, you shouldn't have done that? Or was it just one or two of them that were actually vocal?
From what I remember, I think all of them said something, except for maybe Mr. Bowers. He may have been the only one that didn't make a comment. And then there were several citizens that made comments. Several citizens that made comments.
Now, since this photograph has come out, obviously there's been a lot of press coverage, a lot of comments being made. It was brought to our attention that Ms. Johnson brought this out in a meeting, council meeting, I guess. Was it an executive session that this photo was released, or she heard that the photo was released?
What happened was Councilmember Fox, during the council meeting, stood up and said, I have a formal complaint to file, and handed the complaint to me, but did not say what the complaint was about. Then Councilmember Barbie asked to go into executive session to discuss a personnel issue. When we came in here for the personnel issue is when they brought up
About the photo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Did Ms. Johnson bring up the photo, or did another council member bring up the photo?
I can't remember, and I don't even know if I'm supposed to discuss executive session, so.
Yeah, well,
I know you're the police. And
yeah, that's kind of what we're investigating, not, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Johnson was extremely upset, was she not?
Yes, when she left here, she was very, very upset. Yes, and even when she went outside, you could hear her screaming.
That's what I was going to ask you. You say she was screaming.
Yeah, I don't know what she was saying. You could just hear her talking.
I mean, understanding what had happened to her and everything like that, do you think she acted accordingly, or do you think she could have acted a little bit?
My personal opinion.
Yes,
okay.
ma'am, that's all.
Okay. I think, I don't know what was said.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard rumor that there were obscenities yelled. And if that is the case, then I think, you know, she is representing the city, even though it did happen to her and it was completely terrible. I completely understand. Everybody handles their anger differently. I would have cried. You know, that's how I handle my anger.
Yeah.
But I think as a representative, maybe those words shouldn't have been said. But that's just, I did not hear them. I'm just saying that's what I think it was reported in the newspaper, that obscenities were being said.
Yeah.
But you could definitely hear her talking. I just couldn't make out what she was saying.
Yeah. And it had been pretty loud. I'm assuming you were in here and she was outside?
Mm-hmm. Well, she was right outside that door.
Yeah.
Who was she talking to?
I don't know who was out there.
So in the same instance, you said if she had used profanity, that it would be wrong. How do you feel about knowing that the picture that was taken had to been taken by someone that was in the executive session? How do you feel about that?
Yes, I think it's terrible. I really do. I think it's horrible. Yes.
Do you think that it was unfair for them to do it, or that...
Well, most definitely.
We've talked to Mr. Steele,
Mm-hmm.
who posted the photo, and he's already told the media he's not going to tell who gave him the photo. We asked him, he said he's not going to tell us. He says, yes, I know who gave me the photo, obviously, but I'm not going to say. So we're trying to work around it. We're trying to figure out if...
Well, I thought the paper said that he was going to tell who it was.
No, he's not. And the reason why he disseminated the photo was basically in retaliation. It seems like there's a lot of bitterness that's going on amongst council members here. So, other than that, do you have any other comments, thoughts, ideas, opinions, questions? Bottom line is you don't know who took the photo.
I don't know.
And you don't have any recall of that specific executive session back in May when we believe the photo had been taken. And you haven't heard anybody make any comments which would be non-factual about who took the photo?
No, you didn't ask me that. I didn't say that.
Okay, well, I just asked you then.
You didn't ask me that. I don't really want to say. And the reason I don't, because if it's not true, then I've marred somebody's.
No.
You know what I'm saying?
We're actually just trying to find the facts. We're trying to get to the bottom
Yeah.
of what happened.
Mm-hmm.
We're not trying to besmirch anybody's character or anything. We're just trying to get to the facts. And the only way we're ever going to get to the facts is if people tell us what they know.
I know. But it's just like what Ms. Johnson, I don't want to say has done to me, because she hadn't really done anything, but she listed me as a conspirator in there without finding out, without, she's made blame without really doing any, I don't want to say doing any research, but she's made blame.
She made a blanket blame
Yes.
for everybody.
She listed
Yes,
everybody who
right.
was in that room.
Yes.
And you were in that room.
And I don't want to do that to somebody else. You know what I mean? If I don't know it for a fact.
Right.
I mean,
But-
I've heard rumors, yes. Everybody's been talking about it. But
Right.
I don't
well,
want to.
This is how we kind of operate. It is a rumor, okay. But if enough people say it, or if we hear it from enough people, it kind of makes you wonder, why is it that we're hearing the same thing over and over again, which points us into that direction a little bit stronger. Now, I'll be quite honest with you. So far, the one name that's been popping up quite frequently is Mr. Stanhope. Is that what you've been hearing?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I mean, from the very beginning, that's the one name.
But please know, that is just hearsay. I
Yeah,
don't know that for any kind of fact.
Exactly. And that's the reason why I asked you, do you know who took the picture on a factual basis? Okay? That's all we can operate. That's the only, if it's not fact and it's not proven, it's hearsay. It is, and we understand that. But it gives us a better direction to look. It's a guiding tool for us, that's all. So we're not saying you said, okay? Okay, what we say is basically, we've been hearing. And that's it. That's all.
So what has been said about the picture? General consensus by everybody,
Nobody has really described the picture to me, other than what Ms. Johnson said in the executive session, other than what I've read in the newspaper, that
No, I
being an
mean-
upskirt or whatever.
I know people talk about it, they say things back and forth, and everybody here, you're not going to miss it. So what is the general consensus of everybody saying about the picture? What are they saying? Good, oh, well, that should have happened. No, it shouldn't have happened. That was wrong.
Yes,
Whatever.
I've heard a lot of comments of that was wrong, it should have never happened, yes. And unfortunately, it has caused a greater divide in our council,
A greater divide than what there already was, because there was obviously a divide. Oh, well, your last name is Jordan, right?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Jordan, I don't have any questions.
I'm done as well, man.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
All
And,
right.
and again, you have nothing factual to offer, okay? So it was a conversation.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Miriam Jordan on August 11, 2016. The time is now 12:20 p.m.